Hello, mathematicians. Today we are going to be reading decimal numbers. And there are two rules for when reading decimal numbers. The first is the decimal point is read as the word and. And the second rule is the last word you say is the name of the last place value that contains a digit. Well, this one, that's a lot of words. We're going to have to see that in action to understand that rule. So let's look at these as an example. So this number right here, I have a 1 is just to the left of the decimal. That is the ones place. And then I have a 2 just to the right of the decimal, and that place value is the tenths place. So rule number 2, saying the last word that you say is the name of the last place value that contains a digit. So the tenths place is the last place value that contains a digit. There are no digits here, they're just zero. I have these zeros as placeholders. So I don't say hundreds or thousands because there are no digits there. I'm going to say tenths. That's going to be the last word I say. So I'm going to read this as 1 and, because the decimal point is read as and, 1 and 2 tenths. 1 and 2 tenths. So over here, the 2 is moved one place value to the right. That is the hundredths place. So that's the last word I'm going to say is the word hundredths. 1 and 2 hundredths. And lastly, this example, I have the 2 one more place value to the right. That is the thousandths place. So this decimal is read 1 and 2 thousandths. I've got the words right there. 1 and 2 tenths, 1 and 2 hundredths, 1 and 2 thousandths. Let's go on to level 2. And sometimes you will come across decimal numbers where there are no holes at all. See, there's zeros to the left of the decimal point in the holes places. So you might hear these numbers read a couple of different ways. I have a 2 here in the place just to the right of the decimal. That's the tenths place. So a lot of people will read this as just 2 tenths. The only digit in this entire number is right here in the tenths place, so they'll read it 2 tenths. But I like to say 0 and 2 tenths. I just like to pronounce this 0 in the ones place just so I can say that word and that is a clue to the listener that, oh, he said and, there's a decimal number coming. So 0 and 2 tenths. Likewise over here, this can be read just 2 hundredths, or it can be read 0 and 2 hundredths. And lastly, when the 2 is in the thousandths place, it can be read 2 thousandths or 0 and 2 thousandths. All right, let's get to some larger numbers where we got a lot more digits. If you can read a 3-digit number, you can read a decimal number. Here's what I mean by that. If we were just looking at this number, 324, you read that 324, right? Well, that's all you're going to do when you read this 3-digit number in the decimal place, except since it's in a decimal place, we need to say the name of the last place value where there's a digit. So let me make this number. Sorry, I don't have 2 3s and 2 2s and 2 4s. So I'm just going to make the decimal portion of this number. And if this was a whole number, it would be 324. But this 324, it ends in the thousandths place. That's the last place value with a digit in it. So I'm going to say thousandths after I say this. So this number is 324 and, for the decimal, 324 thousandths. Do you notice how we did that? We just read the 324 just as if it was a whole number, but we put thousandths at the end. Now, one more item I want to talk about is sometimes we get lazy when we're reading numbers, and you might read this number as 324. Well, we can't do that anymore. Now that we're reading decimals, we can't get lazy. We can't read that 324 because you know now that the word and is reserved for a decimal point. So we have to read this 324 and 324 thousandths. Only say and when you're reading a decimal point. All right, let's try this one here. This whole amount is 405. So this number is 405 and 405 thousandths. And here this is 932. So 932 and 932 thousandths. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do is read some more numbers where we might not go into the thousands place. Sometimes we'll go into the tenths, sometimes we'll go to the hundredths. So this is our last stage over here, last stage. What we're going to do when we read these decimals, we're going to read the whole number amount first, say and for the decimal, and read the decimal amount. That's what you do every time you read a decimal. I'll use my place value chart to make these numbers. So I see a 4 in the tens place, a 3 in the ones place, a 0 in the tenths place, so I don't need another number tile, and a 5 in the hundredths place. So this number is 43 and 5 hundredths, right? The 5 was in the hundredths place, so we say 5 hundredths. Okay, now you try each of these before you see me make them. See if you can read them while I make them. All right, did you read it like this? 624 and 73 thousandths. That's 73. It's not 73 hundredths because there's a 0, then the 73. That 3 is in the thousandths place, so we need to say 73 thousandths. Okay, one more here. Again, that 2 is in the thousandths place, so that's the last word we're going to say. 90 and 12 thousandths. A few more to end our video. This 4 is in the ones place. Oh no, I don't have another 4 tile for here, so I guess we're going to have to do this without the place value chart. 4 and 4 hundredths. That 4 is in the hundredths place. I can make this one 13 and 24 hundredths. And lastly, I have a 2, a 3, and 8 in the ones place. And that 5 is just to the right of the decimal. That's the tenths place. That would be 238 and 5 tenths. There you go. You've got all you need in order to read decimals correctly.